conventions to follow, as well as I must admit that I feel slightly like I'm back in school because we've been called to speak on alphabetical order, which is nice because I'm also going to be speaking about our education projects in schools. But before I do that, just a very brief introduction of myself and the organization that I'm associated with in Ladakh. But I am trained as a filmmaker and an anthropologist, and I first visited Ladakh around 2006 and 7, but started sort of working professionally here, I think from around 2010, which is when I received a couple of fellowships to do certain research projects. Around 2013-14 is when I was invited to join the Achi Association India, the India chapter of the association. And since then, I've also, have been involved in all the projects that we've been part of in Ladakh. The projects that Achi has been involved in are primarily conservation projects. We are an organization of architects and conservators and archaeologists and geologists. So we do a lot of research as well as actual hardcore conservation. Some of the sites that you might have heard are work happening in are sites like Wanla, it's like Skurbuchan, Nyoma. There's a beautiful little chotan behind the monastery that we had worked on. We did a temple in Henniskot. We did a temple in Kanji, which is perhaps one of the most exquisite examples of Drigung art from that period, and so on. But a lot of that information is available on our website. So if anyone is interested, please feel free to go and just search for Achi Association Ladakh or Achi Association India, and you'll find the details of all the projects. Since 2015 and 16, we decided to revive a kind of training program, which Achi had also done back in 2008 and 9. The 2008-9 version of the education project was located much more within the monastery. It was trying to create capacity for conservation-related activities within monks and people who are the closest to some of these exquisite examples of wall paintings and architecture that we have in Ladakh. But in 2013 and 14, from our experience of working in the field, as well as our interest in engaging more with the community, we felt that we needed to initiate a slightly larger education program, which would work directly with schools. There were two primary let's say, intentions in that. One was, of course, to kind of bridge, a gap that is there in curricula across India, actually. Like, for instance, I studied in Calcutta and grew up in Calcutta, but when we studied history, there was very little about Calcutta in that. Or when we studied geography, there was very little about that region. We study things in a more generic sort of format. However, these kind of informations, these kind of understandings of culture, of heritage, often finds a way within modules such as art education. So in sort of periods, in art classes or craft classes, there is a sort of opportunity to engage with young people and open them up to a lot more local sort of information and resources, which is also something that we've been doing in a lot of other cities. I mean, I know that there are several schools in Bangalore who have engaged in such programs. I myself am associated with a couple of such programs in Hyderabad, where I also work part of the year. So one part of it was definitely engagement and creating an opportunity for young people at a very young age, as young as perhaps 5th, 6th standards or middle school or high school, to kind of engage with these ideas and sort of open their exposure to the immediate sort of environment around them, whether it is physical or whether it is the natural environment. So that is one. But the other part also was to kind of build a platform where teachers and students could also interact around some of these topics. In fact, I would also like to keep my presentation very short, because some of my colleagues, like Joyati, who's the co-director of the association, Megha, who is someone we are collaborating with. She is the director of the Seagull Foundation in Calcutta, with whom we are sort of planning the second phase of the education program. They are here, so if they'd like to add anything later. So again, very briefly going back, when we started the first phase of the education program, we kind of decided that we are going to first focus on certain aspects of tangible heritage, which is very often spoken about. But we felt that there is an opportunity to sort of historicize it and also sort of present some material in a very simple way. So there were four broad topics that we had chosen, starting with rock arts and petroglyphs, fortifications, monasteries, wall paintings, and vernacular architecture. And each of these sections, so for instance, the rock carving and the petroglyph section was kind of, the content was given to us by another colleague of ours, Dr. Quentin Devers, who lives and works here. He also contributed the content for the fortifications. The rock art and fortifications part of it was part of his own PhD studies. So, we had a great time sort of discussing and, simplifying some of that material and making it accessible for younger people. The wall painting section was also created by another young scholar who's been working in Ladakh called Nils Martin. And the vernacular architecture section was created by, again, a young Italian architect called Edoardo Ferrari. So we did a lot of workshops with the ideas that we put together. And we also were working on creating some teaching aid and some teaching modules. So we had the great opportunity of working with a whole bunch of school teachers in and around Leh. This was a workshop that was held in the Central Asian Museum back in 2017. And subsequently, we did workshops in Changthang at the Nomadic Residential School and in Khalse at the Lamdon School in Khalse, as well as the government high school in Silmo. So we are now coming towards the end of the first phase of the education program. We have been able to compile 2 volumes. There's a third volume of the teaching aid that is sort of due to be completed very soon. I'm hoping that by the beginning of the year, some of this material will be available for the general public. Our imagination is to kind of make it available free of cost to everyone, so that people can very simply download it and use it, either as a kind of individual exercise, or if educators want to download it and sort of use it for workshops or classes. So that is the general imagination there. While we were doing this, in fact, in this year 2020, we also discovered that the CBSE, the Central Board of Secondary Education, has come out with a set of directives. They refresh their policies and plans every couple of years. And this year, they, in their art integration program, have suggested that states and union territories in India share resources while they work on aspects of art and craft and culture. And it so happened that Bengal had been clubbed with Ladakh. So about a month back, we started speaking to all the principals and a lot of teachers in the Leh area to begin with. And we've got a lot of positive response in terms of their participation. So in the second phase, what we are hoping is to sort of also go into areas such as crafts, such as local traditions, oral histories, and also aspects of leisure such as sports, music, and dance, and create both workshops and exchange programs where we develop exhibitions, which can either travel from, between Leh and Calcutta, where groups of teachers and students can interact with themselves either online and, when it is possible, offline, possibly even travel to Calcutta and go back and forth, because already it has come to our notice. For instance, my nephew, who's in a high school in Calcutta, has been sort of downloading things from the internet because he was requested to make a presentation on Ladakh. And when he sent it to me, I was not surprised, but I was a little concerned, that young people should be able to not only access, interesting, thoughtful and factual information, but more importantly, also perhaps get an opportunity to interact with young people like them, across these 2 regions. And of course, in today's day and age, the possibilities are numerous, thanks to all the online possibilities that are there, which we are all, I think, without much choice, are slowly sort of signing up to. So I'm sorry if I missed something, because I wanted to also keep it very short. I'll be very happy to discuss more about this with anyone who might be interested later, but I'll end my talk here. In fact, I just noticed that even Latika is over here, and or she was, and we were actually planning the first set of workshops in summer next year with her, which was to work with museum objects, because she has also worked extensively at the Munshi Aziz. She says she's still here. Thank you. She has also worked extensively in Kargil, with the Munshi Museum, and we were hoping that we'd be able to do workshops, where teachers are also kind of able to kind of understand how very simply museum objects or objects of craft can be included, in these kind of periods and activities, to kind of gain much better insight on materials and the history of materials and processes in the region. So that's me.